Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
This is CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Today on CityCast Madison, welcome to the Wednesday news roundup because we couldn't wait for Friday. Why? We're actually taking off after today for the 4th. Sorry, not sorry. So hello, midweek news roundup. Joining me today is our illustrious newsletter editor, Rob Thomas. Hey, Rob.
Happy Wednesday, Bianca? That feels weird.
It is a happy Wednesday. I mean, I'm going to look on the bright side. Happy Wednesday, I'll take it. And our bombastic producer, Jade Iseri Ramos. Hey, Jade.
Hi, Bianca. I'm so happy to be here with you guys on this midweek roundup.
Likewise. And you are kicking us off. We have kind of big news from the Supreme Court.
Yeah, we do. So at the end of last week, the Wisconsin Supreme Court ruled that UW Health does not have to recognize and bargain with the nurses union. And this all comes back to, can I get a drum roll, please?
I was going to say TISC. Here's drum roll. TISC and a...
TISC and a drum roll. This all comes back to Act 10. Womp womp. You'll remember Act 10. It's the Walker-era law that drastically limited the power of public employee unions and effectively ended mandatory collective bargaining. Now, a little background, the nurses union at UW Health was largely phased out after Act 10. But in 2019, the nurses revived their union, and they were actually successful in 2022 in reaching an agreement with the hospital to recognize their union to avoid a 3-day strike. Now, they were arguing that Act 10 didn't actually apply to them, right? So the Service International Employees Union, or SEIU, was arguing that a 1995 law, which is called the Wisconsin Employment Peace Act, required UW Health to negotiate with their nurses. Therefore, Act 10 didn't apply to UW Health Nurses Union. However, the Wisconsin Employee Relations Commission struck that down. They declared that the Peace Act does not apply to UW Health. Specifically, it did not apply to the authority or the employer of the UW Health nurses. And the union appealed that case. The case made its way through the court and then was heard this session by the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And that brings us to last week, in which the justices ruled in a unanimous decision that the Peace Act did not, in fact, apply to UW Health, which means Act 10 did, which is a big blow for unions, but I don't think it's surprising. I think Act 10 is kind of it was created as a beast and remains a beast. What do y'all think?
Certainly a beast. It's the beast we know. My goodness gracious. It's been roaring ever since it was enacted a decade ago. I guess, yeah, I don't know if I'm surprised or not.
I guess I'm a little surprised to see a unanimous decision, just because I'm always surprised to see a unanimous decision these days from a court. It's usually, 4-3 in the case of the divided Wisconsin Supreme Court. But it seems like they just, kind of deferred to the Wisconsin Employment Relations Commission decision, basically, and said they have the right to decide this, and they did, and they upheld that. So,
yeah, I think back when we were covering the race in this most recent Supreme Court election, one thing that we heard by now Justice-elect Susan Crawford is that it's a case-by-case situation, and I think this exactly lays out, right? Apparently, the facts in the case really led to this decision, and it doesn't matter how the justices align ideologically, they're ruling on a case. I think that's very clear in this decision. But I will say Act 10 will itself be in the courts eventually. There's another case that is right now in the Court of Appeals. That was, if you guys will remember, in December when there was just a moment, just a few moments where Act 10 appeared to be struck down by a Dane County Circuit Court judge. Do y'all remember that moment in December?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so that decision will certainly be headed to the Supreme Court, and we will see. We'll see what that means for all public employees and their unions. I think maybe it'll be less cut and dry, seeing as this case was really whether or not laws applied to the specific union.
I know this is what the nurses are really counting on now, is that decision, that Act 10 decision.
Yeah, the nurses.
Yeah.
The nurses now will be really depending on that, along with all other public employees in Wisconsin.
I feel like this decision just really stands in high relief to, our recent news with the Meritor nurses strike and having seen, what that meant and them coming to an agreement that nurses could feel good about. It's standing in high relief.
Yeah, absolutely. We have been watching the court pretty closely the last couple, really the last month, as we were expecting a series of decisions to come down. And they've slowly been dropping them. We are currently waiting for a decision on the 1849 near total abortion ban that is expected today, Wednesday, July 2nd. And we are following that story, and we'll be breaking that decision, whatever it may be, on an upcoming show.
Yeah, and if you're a Madison Minute subscriber, you already have your regular newsletter in your inbox, but I'm going to be sending out a breaking news email today once we get that opinion released. So we'll be on top of that.
Yes, it's all about the state Supreme Court these days. I know that we were talked about some of the cases that they decided on last Friday News Roundup. It's big stuff. It's weighty things. And yeah, sometimes I just wish that we could be flies on the wall and just like, what happened in this case? And, it is about how well the case was made and the facts at hand. So, Jade, appreciate you bringing us that story. It's a big one for UW nurses and for the UW health system here. So we are going to continue on. A lot of us are going to be outside this weekend, so we're going to turn to talk about public spaces. Before we do that, let's take a quick break.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold, soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
Hey, Fidelity. What's it cost to invest with the Fidelity app?
Start with as little as $1 with no account fees or trade commissions on U.S. stocks and ETFs.
That's music to my ears.
I can only talk.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Zero account fees apply to retail brokerage accounts only. Sell order assessment fee not included. A limited number of ETFs are subject to a transaction-based service fee of $100. See full list at fidelity.com/commissions. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE, SIPC.
Okay, we're back. So the city, y'all, is once again looking at how to make the best use of the plaza right at the top of State Street. That's the news. That's part of the news, where State Street meets the state capitol building. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Oh, of course.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So right by Teddy Wedgers and Ian's Pizza on the corner. This area, as y'all are probably well aware of, is a storied area, and we'll get into that. But first, we're going to talk about the latest and what the city's looking at. Reporter Liam Barron, who we've had on the show with the Isthmus, has a good write-up on the city's new plans. The city recently released some design mock-ups for the plaza for what longtime downtown alder Mike Revere calls one of the, quote, most visible, I would argue, crossroads in the entire state of Wisconsin. I kind of agree. At the top of State Street, it kind of is a spot I would imagine many people from the state go to and have that sort of experience with Madison.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I've seen so many like groups starting their path down State Street, right? It's either one way, right? Either you're starting your path down State Street right there, or you're ending it there and you're looking up at the Capitol and you're getting your photo, standing in the middle of the street, hoping that a bus doesn't come and honk at you.
Yes, 100%. Or you're like listening to the marimba because it's a night
Yeah.
market, or
Yep.
any one of the things.
I think maybe the most photographed parts of Madison, probably.
Oh, for sure. I definitely have tried. Well, I guess that's a block down by the Orpheum, but I've definitely tried to get some good photos there in that area. So with the city's designs, they're looking at a new configuration for that top of State Street space for two purposes, looking to draw more people to the area and simultaneously address some of the ongoing safety concerns. Basically, the city's been grappling with safety concerns there for some time. And to this day, business owners are citing that staff have been accosted when going home after their night shifts, issues with people fighting and drinking, and basically other criminal behavior. That sort of problematic situation is still going on, unfortunately. So they're putting forward some designs, and the call is to add like tables, planters, and more programming from downtown to get more people there and just kind of make it a safer space. Apparently, all of the designs would, quote, add increased lighting and revamped pedestrian plazas to the corners stretching northwest and southeast from State Street. And they'd be looking for food carts and vendors to make use of the spaces. I know one of the designs was talking about maybe even using that parking lot that's kind of behind Ian's, that, also in Michelangelo's, because it's used by businesses and like private spaces. But if they could make that into public spaces, I know some of the businesses over there, including Ian's, kind of flagged that as hey, that's where we deliver. We get a lot of our delivery business through that back end. But yeah, they're looking at plans. So how to update this space, which is exciting. I think the elephant in the room is that this part of Madison has a dark history, right? Talking about safety concerns, this area draws a large unhoused population, or certainly has in the past. And if you were here 10 years ago, you likely remember the then mayor, Paul Soglin, had a public art exhibit called Philosopher's Grove removed from that plaza to address persistent, quote, behavioral problems with the homeless groups who would congregate there during the day and also sometimes sleep at night. This installation was a series of dark granite and bronze stones where people could sit and ironically congregate to discuss the issues of the day, like, I don't know, maybe affordable housing. Rob, I know you were here for that. Do you remember how big of a deal that was? And then the following criminalizing sleeping outside of City Hall?
Yeah, it was huge. And I think exactly like you said, it's sort of like the ideals of Madison running smack up against, these other issues, which, as you say, are valid, and, safety concerns are valid, but, it's the challenge of trying to make a community space that's welcoming, but also safe for everybody, I think, and not exclusionary, right? Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, I remember my little idealist heart in 2015. I was shocked. And now I'm like, I don't know why I was so shocked, but it really stung because I know, obviously, homeless community here pushed back. Like, how could you do this? And also the artist herself, Jill Sebastian, was like, this is the point of this, is where people can come and congregate. So when that was removed, it's just kind of left a scar, I feel like, at the top of State Street. That's how I would describe it. Because it's just kind of a dark chapter, but it's one of those things that the city has to continue to grapple with, and safety issues have not been addressed. So obviously removing the installation did not do the trick. Yeah. I don't know. Jade, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, this was removed slightly before I came, a few years before I came, but I'm looking now at an Isthmus piece, and the artist Sebastian said in this piece, the only consolation I have is to know that the artwork did become a site of debate that we need to have as a society. And to be here 10 years later, having a conversation about that is so true, right? We're talking about the issues. I also say my least favorite thing, and I will point it out and I'll yell at it when I'm walking down the street, is hostile architecture. Like when
100%.
I see something that I'm like, oh, that is designed that way so no one can lay down and no one can like rest there is, I think, one of the uglier parts of our society.
There was this removal of Philosopher's Grove that had me like learning what hostile architecture even was. That was when I was like, oh, they're putting benches out in Madison that are intentionally supposed to be uncomfortable so you don't sleep on them, or like they're angled a certain way. And
or they have like armrests so that you can't lay down.
Yeah, it's ugly, right? It's an ugly chapter that, hey, it's not over, but I think hopefully the city is going to be addressing this with a little more tact. I know Soglin took incredible amount of scrutiny about his attempts to make downtown safer, like it was a really tricky situation, but it to most people it felt heartless. So how are we reckoning with that now, 10 years later, and to a deeper affordable housing crisis? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of energy in that space downtown. Like I saw a State Journal article about how, you go to the farmer's market and then the top of State Street's now become this like arts and crafts bazaar, basically, with all these great, local artisans and stuff. And so it's a space that means a lot to a lot of people. And as you say, the question is how to make it welcoming to everybody while still, making it safe.
And some of those design mock-ups, thinking about increased lighting, they're really thinking about this tactfully. So I'm glad to hear that something is being made, right? I do think that making it an even more official, like celebratory space for gathering is a wonderful thing. And we know this just underscores our need for public spaces, right? For everyone to enjoy. We got it on our mind. Let's be honest. It is the 4th of July weekend, and a lot of us, I assume all three of us for sure, are going to be going outside for the 4th. Rob, you did a whole write-up on 4th of July activities.
Yeah. Speaking of outdoor lighting, right? Fireworks.
Lit up.
There we go. Friday is lit. It's the 4th of July. And there are pyrotechnics all over town, not just Friday, but throughout the long weekend. I would say the granddaddy of them all right now in the area is the fireworks at Monona Community Festival at Winnequa Park at sundown on the 4th. And there's, a lot to celebrate. I think we talked about this, that they were going to cancel this festival. They said it's too much work and last year, but then reverse course after this outpouring of support from the community. So like I said, I know it's a very crowded, popular event. Like Jade, you're our Monona correspondent. Do you have any tips on doing tips and tricks on doing the Monona fireworks right?
I do. So like you mentioned, Rob, we did get really into the Monona Community Festival in our July guide. So go back and listen to yesterday's show if you want to really get into what's happening this weekend in Monona for the Community Festival. But if you're coming for the fireworks, don't come for the fireworks. And what I mean by that is get here at like 2, come to Monona early in the day, find parking, get yourself a lemonade, go on the twisty, spinny, vomit-inducing ride.
That's what it's called. That's what it's called. Yeah.
Very attractive.
Come early because I have, every single year that I've lived here, seen this line of cars trying to get to a parking spot at dusk, and they miss the fireworks. Every year there's, I don't know, a row of 200 cars going down Nickel Street that they're going to miss the fireworks. They're going to see it from their cars. And so just get here early. And if you can, if you're somewhere close, bus in as close as you can, walk the rest of the way, or bike in, because parking is a limited resource in Monona on the 4th of July.
Yeah. Or just, find a spot somewhere else around like Monona and watch it. I know Yahara Park is a great place to put out a blanket and watch the fireworks from. Olbrich, I think, is a good place to watch them as well. One year when my kids were little, I took them all the way across the lake to Olin Park, and, they're so massive. It was still a good view, and you get to see those fireworks and then the other fireworks going around the lake. One year, years ago, an ex-girlfriend and I even took a kayak out onto Lake Monona, and we watched the fireworks from that, which was beautiful. except the lights failed on the kayak. And so all of a sudden we're sitting on this little boat in the middle of Lake Monona in the dark, and there's all these speedboats going around. And it was very scary. I was very scared.
I was going to say, okay, romantic Rob. We always are giving you nicknames.
Sadly, it turned every man for himself, but so we don't want to get run over. So that was an experience I won't forget.
So hot tip, bring extra lights.
Extra light.
Yeah.
We were waving our cell phones to try and be the light. Like we had the flashlight mode on. It was bad.
Is it safe? Like I'm always, maybe I am delusional, but I'm like, fireworks are going to fall on me.
we were out of the blast zone, but
Say a good distance away.
There you go. Right. Be safe on land or on sea. When it comes to fireworks. That's our bottom line. And of course, Monona is not the only place to see fireworks, and the 4th isn't the only day to see them. Down in Verona, Festival Foods is going to set off its fireworks show tonight, Wednesday, at Hometown Festival USA Park, which is like the most 4th of July named park ever.
The party has already begun.
That's right. That's right. And Thursday, the Festival Foods in Madison will be sponsoring a fireworks show at the Duck Pond following the Madison Mallards game. And then Friday, the Madison Nightmares, which I know is a favorite of Jay's.
Yeah, go Nightmares!
There we go. They're gonna sponsor or host their own fireworks show after their game. And this is just perfect. The team they're playing against for the fireworks show is the Wausau Ignite, which is like the perfect name for a fireworks show team.
Explosive.
Explosive, yeah. I bet you just go out in the field and watch the fireworks from there. So it's great. And even if you don't like the smell of burning cordite in the air, there's still plenty of ways to celebrate the 4th. Tonight on Wednesday, the Wisconsin Chamber Orchestra's Concert on the Squares program is called A Celebration of Liberty and will feature, patriotic tunes like Stars and Stripes Forever and the 1812 Overture, where they fire cannons in the park. It's sort of famous for doing that. So, put your fingers in your ears if you don't like all the bombast. And then just looking at the next week, the Concerts on the Square theme on July 9th is American Song, which features the music of 20th century American composers, both, Gershwin and Bernstein, and then a lot of Black composers who haven't been featured on the program in the past, like Omar Thomas and James Lee III, which is great. Plus, there's going to be a special guest vocalist, soprano and Met opera star Angela Brown. So I think that's going to be a really cool concert, right?
Yeah.
And we've got a family on the 4th. You don't want to stay up late for the fireworks. The Edgewater Hotel will be hosting its 4th Fest from 2 to 8 p.m., featuring music by Natty Nation and the People Brothers Band, 2 great local bands. 2 performances by the Mad City Water Ski Team out on Lake Mendota, and they've got like face painting and all other kinds of kids activities. So what do you guys have planned for the 4th?
Yeah, so I've got a couple of things planned. I probably will go to the Monona fireworks, but before that, I have a series of parties, including a party, Chinga La Migra themed, which is I'm pretty excited about because it's lovely people who are throwing it, and there's going to be kiddie pools and like for adults. So I'll be sitting in a kiddie pool and eating tacos and elotes and snacks. It's going to be wonderful vibes. And then like a family party get together. So I'm going to see, a lot of little kids and do all the things, and then probably make my way over to Winnequa in some format. I will say, to add to the tips, wear good shoes. I've been trying to learn that since 5th grade. I never do. And last year it did rain at one point. And so the whole place was like puddles. And I don't know, I guess you don't really want wet tennis shoes, but at the same time, I don't know that I preferred the shoes I was wearing. And there was a lot of walking from my car to all sorts of places. So those are my plans.
Rob, you mentioned that last year might have been the end of the Monona Community Festival. Right. And they needed volunteers. So I will be doing my part and volunteering as a bartender once. There's going to be drag bingo that I'm going to volunteer at.
Great.
So that's where I'll be.
Fun!
I know. And then, doing the grill out, doing the hot dogs, doing the hanging out with friends, enjoying the day off. Yeah. And that's my 4th plans, keeping it relatively chill and volunteering at the community festival.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys agree. I think this 4th of July is kind of complicated for a lot of Americans. I mean, let's just say it. The country's in a really challenging place right now. We've talked about a lot of it on this podcast and in the Madison Minutes newsletter. And many people may not feel like, going rah-rah and celebrating. But I think kind of like you guys are talking about, like we can definitely celebrate our community, right? We can definitely celebrate each other as fellow Americans, especially when we see people rising up and speaking out and helping each other and, putting the ideals of the country into practice, even when it seems like the country itself doesn't seem to be living up to them. And that sort of prefaces this really interesting event that's happening July 5th at the Bur Oak, which is called Interdependence Day.
Yeah.
Isn't that a cool idea? It's described as a community celebration of the spirit of resilience that we find in our shared experience. So it's an all-day event at the Bur Oak on the east side. It's going to feature the first part's in the day from 2 to 8, and it features live music. Environmental groups will be talking about what they're doing to make the world a little better place. Artists will be presenting their creations, and then there's going to be like a potluck barbecue, and that's all free. And then at 8 p.m., everything moves inside for a ticketed concert. And it just seems like a really good way to come together as a community and like have a great time and honoring the values that we all share.
Totally. I remember when I saw that, I was like, oh, good on you, Madison. I love this. This is great. Because I think a lot of people have feelings and, some cognitive dissonance and discord around celebrating, our nation and the direction it's going in. So you go Interdependence Day.
Yep.
It's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah.
And I also, just doubling down on community and making that space. And I feel like also our families are our community and our chosen family. And just those are these real bonds that we have that we're developing. And in our crazy world, sometimes things you can get lost and not spend time there. So I'm excited for a reason to just lean in. And before we go, we've got one more story that I'm going to talk about, and it's birds that be leanin'. We're talking flamingos at the Henry Vilas Zoo. The Henry Vilas Zoo has decided to name their 20 flamingos, including one 54-year-old bird. So I know we know about this story, and we've been talking about it all week. I'm pretty excited. Apparently, the approach for naming them is in part to help people connect with them and relate to often misunderstood animals like reptiles or insects. And so, we know that other animals in the zoo get names, but now these birdies are getting it. And we want to know, Jade, Rob, what would you name one of our flamingos or a few of our flamingos at the zoo?
Well, I think one has to be named after the pranks at Bascom Hall. So maybe Bascom or something like that, Bassie, something like that.
Love it.
Yeah. And then one thing they said was they were going to try and name the 54-year-old bird about something that happened when it was born in 1971 or something like that. So I'm trying to think what happened in 1971. I was 3, so I wasn't reading a lot of news back then.
You weren't absorbing literally
Not
everything
as much. Yeah.
that was happening.
Yeah.
I do like that idea of going back. I don't know. I like Bascom a lot. I'm thinking like Leggy. Who's a leggy person? Serena Williams? I don't know.
Serena's nice. Yeah.
Serena. We'll name one Serena.
Well, the one problem I have is like which of the 20 birds do you decide is the leggiest and deserves to be called Serena? It's like I was thinking Pinky is a name, but they're all pink. So which one do you go, okay, you're Pinky and the rest of you are not?
Right. You probably do need one Pinky.
Yeah.
It should be if there are any like albino ones, we'll name that one Pinky. I don't know.
Okay. And the brain, maybe. Yeah.
Yes. I was recently at Henry Vilas, and there's I don't know if they were a volunteer or a staff member, but they were telling us about the flamingos. And there's actually 2 species of flamingos at our zoo. So there's the Argentinian flamingos and the American flamingos. So the American flamingos, they're the really bright pink ones, and then the lighter ones are the Argentinian flamingos. And so I did a quick Google search of popular baby names in Argentina. And so I think that we should certainly name some of the flamingos Valentina, Camilla, Sophia, and boy flamingos, Mateo, Felipe, something, to honor their Argentinian roots.
Those are so good. I love those names. And then that's like 5. You've got 4 of them done right there.
Yeah, very good thinking. How about Tango?
Tango.
Yeah, Tango. Some dance, the national dance of Argentina.
We need a flamingo named Big Chungus, obviously, right?
Obviously.
Big Chungus is huge. Can people send in their name ideas, or we're just playing for fun?
We're just playing for fun. I don't know that they've said how they're going to name them.
Well, we're going to go outside the Flamingo area and hold signs with our names. And hope that they go with the names we gave them. Y'all, okay, let's fly away home. It is Wednesday. We're wrapping this midweek news roundup up to head off to a fun weekend. And I really appreciate it. Thanks for rounding up the news with me this week. Jade Isiri Ramos, see you later.
Bye, Bianca.
And Rob Thomas, thanks so much.
Happy 4th.
That's all for today, here on CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, your host. We're produced by Jade Isiri Ramos, Selena Saya Reynolds, and Noah Snyderman. Haley Sperling is our executive producer. Our theme music is by Carl Christensen. Rob Thomas is our newsletter editor, with help this week from Natalia Aldana. Don't forget, you can always get more news delivered right to your inbox by subscribing to Madison Minutes. And if you enjoyed today's show, why not share this podcast with someone who goes all out for the 4th? Remember, we are off Friday this week, no podcast or newsletter. And I want to flag that we have a special podcast dropping tomorrow, an all-host competition extravaganza where I represent Madison in a verbal battle for whose city is the best place to summer vacation. Until then, please take good care.